Actors, we've all got issues, so let's talk about them. I'm your host, Juan Ayala, and this is Actors with Issues. In today's bite-sized interview, we're joined by Phil Dunster, star of the Apple TV Plus series Ted Lasso.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So before we dive into Ted Lasso, I want to go back to the beginning a bit. So growing up, were there any actors that you saw on screen that you wanted that type of career, that's sort of trajectory you were vying for?
No, not really,
Really?
because I don't think that I really wanted to be an actor. I don't really think I knew what it was for quite a while. I think that I would go and see plays quite a lot, and I would go, "Wow, that's incredible what they're doing." That we're all sat here, sort of marveling at this world that's being created, that we all know is not real, but we kind of believe that it is. And I thought that was pretty special. Um, and me being a big show off was like that looks like something I'd love to do
Mm.
more of. But it was really only when I was sort of 15, 16 did I sort of start taking it seriously at all. Um, and I had a couple of great drama teachers when I was at school. And they're the ones who sort of shepherded me towards it. Um, but the first performance I remember seeing that I was like, wow, I really want to do that was Tom Hardy playing Bronson,
Mm.
which was I was around about 16 at the time when it came out, um, and I was like, I don't know what he's doing, but that's incredible. Whatever he's just done is amazing.
And I'm curious with having, I mean, you were on the show at such a young age. I mean, you were in your late 20s for someone to be on a show of on a global scale on a platform like Apple TV Plus. Did you find that jarring? That sort of like, I mean, the show came during COVID, so I feel like things were sort of handled a bit differently at that time period. But was it a bit jarring for you, like sort of being on a show with all these viewers at that time?
It's hmm, I don't know, man. I think in a sense, yes. I remember that Normal People came out, which was
Mm.
Paul Mescal and Daisy Edgar-Jones. Um, that came out, and I remember thinking at the time, it came out a couple of months before us, and thinking like that's such a weird life they're living, where they have sort of the show they're a part of is a moment, and it's like
Mm.
incredibly powerful, and it's really connected with a lot of people. And Sally Rooney's book was amazing. I'd read it, a couple of years before. And thinking like what a weird world that they're inhabiting right now, where they're doing all these interviews and they're taking part in that moment, but like kind of totally isolated. Um, and and I guess I look back now, and it didn't happen in the same way that it did for those two, that show.
Mm.
It was a bit more of a slower burn in a sense, and I certainly wasn't as anywhere near as front and center as those two were. But I think that seeing that and then sort of having the comparative response, or relative response, I should say, for Ted, it was weird. I mean, so it all happened in a bubble, uh, and as these things always do. But even we were literally in a bubble in our social bubbles,
Yeah.
and so yeah, I think added a slight element to the notion of I'm not really quite sure how it's going down, but I think it happened at a time. I don't know if I've really thought about this before, but I think it quite helped with the thing of being like, what other people think about it has kind of got nothing to do with me, and I think that that's
Mm.
something that I try to um, remember when it comes to like my own perception of my performance. I can only do, I can only do what I can, with the work that I can bring to a part. How people receive it kind of isn't up to me at all. And so if it's gone goes down really well or goes down really badly, I don't know if this is like a universal truth, but I think that it's got nothing to do with me how other people feel about it, and I think that that alleviates some of the pressure to be brilliant every time. I think.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. A recent interview I read with a fellow Brit on another Apple TV show, Tom Holland, talking about the crowded
I've heard of
room.
it.
He, he was speaking about he's fully aware that his show is not well received critically, but audiences love it. And he was sort of saying that, to him, that's what's really important is okay, a handful of critics didn't like it, but others watched the entire show and it stuck with them and it meant something to them. And to him, that, we don't make art for good reviews, we make art for sake of making art and making a
Sure.
living from
Yeah.
it. So I think that is a
Yeah.
very healthy perspective of just it's not anything to do with you how people receive it. There's always someone who's not going to like something despite everyone else loving it. Yeah. And early on in your career, was there anything that you've sort of discovered is a total misconception that actors have about the entertainment industry?
That you do any acting. I think that even when people have, I mean, obviously it's been a weird year because of the strike,
Mhm.
but like the amount of time that you actually spend doing what you get paid for, I suppose, which is the actual acting. I'm not talking about like being on set, getting
Right.
makeup done, doing meetings with people, or like auditioning, learning auditions. All this stuff is part of being an actor, but acting is like .0005% of your actual life. And it's funny because when you're at drama school, when I was at drama school, if and everyone will go to drama school, they'll have their own way in, but being at drama school, which I think was really my sort of coming of age in terms of understanding what the acting uh, profession was. It's kind of, and I totally understand why, because you're there to learn the uh, craft of acting. You're there to just, immerse yourself in doing acting. Uh, but by those sort of standards, um, you'd expect to be acting a lot more than you actually are. Even when filming something like Ted, which was a long shoot and we had lots of stuff to do. And I think this probably changes. I imagine if you're like the lead of a long running show, but the amount of people who actually are that, there's probably like, I don't know, 50 people at any one time in the world who are like in a show that they're in every single shot of. So for the
Mhm.
vast majority of actors, acting is such a tiny part of it. It's so much
Yeah.
about the other stuff around it, which is important. It's cynical, it's part of ambition, but it's all a weird like side show to the thing that you actually want to be doing, which is playing on screen or on stage or in rehearsal room or whatever format you're doing.
Yeah. It reminds me of the adage, auditioning is the real work, acting's where you get to play and
Right.
have fun. Like you said, it is a fraction of. I've worked on sets where it's like a 12-hour shoot, and it takes those 12 hours to film two scenes, which ends up being 5 minutes of the final product. So how much acting was there being done?
Yeah,
It's
right.
it's like you
Right,
said, a
which
fraction.
and I think that my girlfriend's a director. I know that my girlfriend's a director, but what I think is being a good actor is not necessarily turning out a good performance. That's part of it. Being
Mhm.
a good actor is also taking direction. It's being collaborative. It's being an artist. It's being somebody who works with other people and making sure that the scene wins or that the story wins or whatever that is. Uh, that you are a part of a cog. You're a cog that is part of a machine, I should say.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I love. I mean, at this point, you know, if people are lucky enough to audition, because it's not a dead cert when you're an actor. Audition can like it kind of is great because you get to play, like
Yeah.
you know, you get to actually do the thing that you want to do.
Mhm. And after 3 seasons of Ted Lasso, and again, we said before, a show that came at a time where we all needed some laughter and levity, and to just, it was a very tough time, obviously, in 2020 with during that whole time. But what did you take away from the whole experience after 3 years on the show? What did you learn in the process, whether it's about yourself or about acting or the industry?
I mean, yeah, a lot, lots and lots. I suppose the thing that I learned, I guess try and take each one of those things. Acting, I think that Brett Goldstein puts it really, really well. When he was talking about Tahib Jimmo, who plays Sam Obsani, he was like, Tahib always wants the scene to win, which is, the thing I said. He doesn't make it about himself ever. He knows how to serve the script, the plot, the scene, the relationship between the two characters, and that's what viewers want to see. Viewers don't
Mm.
want to see someone chewing the furniture necessarily if it doesn't mean that they're serving the plot. So that I think is a sort of neat little adage. I think is a nice thing about the industry. I think that well, I've been acting for 9. Before this, I was acting for 8 years. I think I'd left drama school. Oh no, less than that. 6 years I've been acting for before I left, before I got Ted Lasso. So, I'd been had ups and downs, and I had done lots of small jobs and some slightly bigger jobs with small parts. And so I suppose that like the things that were the best that saw me best in terms of preparing me for it, I think were the tiny jobs where you're working with really good actors and
Mhm.
people who have like been doing it for like years, man, like 40 years. Those are the best people. Those are the people that I really enjoyed working with because they're actors, man. Like they love it. They're still doing it because they love it. And they might not have, you may have seen them in a play like, you know, 10 years ago and like
Mhm.
they just had a walk on part, but they were just something about them were amazing. And when you get to work with those people, just sitting down, asking them questions, people want to help. And I think um, that there's just lots of people in the industry who want to make stuff. So I think finding those people who are good collaborators is kind of the thing I've learned about the industry. That there are loads of people out there that want to do that. It's not a closed shop, and people want to create. Um, I don't remember any of the other bits, but yeah, those are the two things I learned. The only two things I learned.
The only two.
Yeah.
So we have like just a couple of minutes. So we have some user submitted questions from some of our listeners and fans. So Tiki1661 says, if you could have played any other character on the show, who would you would like to try to play?
I would have liked to to play Keeley because it's more that I just loved what Juno did with Keeley because Juno, everyone is brilliant on that show, but I think that she's like special. I think she's really special in terms of what she brings to it. And I think that Keeley is a really interesting character because she has no Juno really has no right. I just wanted to do what Juno did with Keeley. Basically, I wanted to want to have the abilities that she has, but Keeley has no right to be such a rich, deep, uh, sort of emotionally intricate character,
Mm.
and yet what she did with it, I was like, wow, that was amazing, and that's really fun. And she's like really joyful, but also feels things very deeply. And she's a real like incredibly positive uh, character. So I like that.
Phil, thank you so, so much for taking the time to chat with us. Again, huge congrats on the show, and I can't wait to see what's next for you.
Thank you very much. I've just done a thumbs up. I didn't mean to do it, but it's all positive vibes. So thank you very much for having me.
All right. Thank you so much, man. Thanks for joining us. Be sure to subscribe to Actors with Issues on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts, and visit our YouTube channel for full video interviews. Actors with Issues is executive produced and hosted by Juani Ala. See you next time.